So we're at the Keller Williams Windsor office today, and I'm coming all the way from Toronto today. So I'm excited to see what's going on over here. You got a pretty nice office space, buddy.
Yeah, no, we have beautiful office space. This is my friend Gabe Battista. I'm Jordan Silvester. This is a great opportunity to get some insight from an actual Toronto realtor about what on earth is going on in the GTA.
Yeah.
So just for some context, if you watched the weekly update, you already know this, but we're about 510. What are you guys selling for a single family home up in the GTA?
You're at 510? Oh,
yeah.
So double that out a little bit more. Our median price point in Toronto is about 1.25 million. Yeah.
So guys, if you want to, you know, hey, so everybody in Toronto who's watching this, it's way cheaper to live here. Just call Gabe first and then reach out to me through him.
When you realize it's not going to work. Or you sell 2 Windsor properties and you get a Toronto property for free.
There you go. Oh, there. Sell 2, get 1 free. What about the condo market? Our condo market, we only had 19 sales last month and we only got about 125 currently active. What do you guys got going on?
Oh, we got a ton. So like condo sales, we're probably we're dealing with hundreds inventory-wise. When we're looking at, let's say, your median price point, you're still in the 600s. Is probably your median price point, but that ranges for, let's say, for example, a studio being in your 400s with your 2 bedrooms being in the 700s. So they do vary quite a bit.
Wow. So okay, but so you could technically sell your nice home in Windsor and likely get into a condo that's maybe slightly bigger than a studio.
Yeah, with no parking. No parking. Do you like driving in Windsor? Is that a thing?
Yeah, Windsor. Yeah, well, actually, that's a really good thing. When I lived in Toronto, it was really funny because nobody really owns a car.
Yeah.
Tons of people don't have driver's license. They just never needed it. They just take the transit. Windsor, if you don't have a driver's license, it takes hours to get around a small city, whereas everything in Windsor is about 15 minutes. We can get pretty much anywhere we want, including Detroit, Michigan, in less than a half hour.
Yeah. Oh, the border's nearby you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll take us, what, 3 hours to get to Buffalo in that case. There you go. But funny enough, when you mentioned the parking stuff, we actually don't have a choice because new buildings nowadays actually won't even build parking spots. They'll have 0 parking spots for a building of 200 units. So
why? Yeah, but parking, you can sell it. Like you get this little spot. From my understanding, at least, you know, this is going back some years, will age me. But you back in like 2008, 2010, when I remember, you could sell a parking spot for like 50 to 80 grand, and it's just
that's on the low end too. Like
well, now probably. But what I'm saying to you is like, why wouldn't you build those? Like the condos are that expensive. If you can sell this just two yellow lines for all that money.
I wouldn't be the best person to ask, but my gut tells me the developer, it's too expensive for them to do. And it's for them to build, let's say, 5 levels of parking probably is pretty costly. Right. But who knows? Like it's one of those weird phenomenons.
And again,
we're going away from parking, especially for downtown.
Right.
Uptown and more like North York, you'll get parking still because honestly, you need it. But actually, I can't even say that because then you go to, let's say, Vaughan, where all the brand new condos don't have parking. For like 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms you will, but like your smaller 1 bedroom layouts won't have parking. So it's a bit of a funky. So that's the main difference between Toronto and Windsor. I don't know.
Everyone drives down here. We're a motor city, so we put in bike lanes and everyone complains because nobody uses bikes. We need an extra car lane. No, we do have a lot of people using the e-bikes down here. We do see people out on their bikes, but again, our primary thing we see is that we are a motor city, so a lot of people drive and own cars.
Now, do you see a lot of people building? Like, there's been to my understanding, a big boom in Windsor real estate recently. What's been going on with that market? Like, are you finding that they're building because there's a big influx of demand now, or has it been kind of a slow and steady? Prices have been kind of going up because they can't keep up.
Well, we are seeing that again, we still have low inventory in comparison to a normal market. What you're seeing in the pre-construction stuff is you have all of the growth. Really, in that you'll see tons of condo buildings pop up. So where I live in LaSalle, which is a smaller community, about 30,000 people, like there was maybe 2 or 3 condo buildings, and now there's probably 15, and that's in the last like 2 to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So again, I think that has partly to do with the boomers aging and wanting a different quality of life, so they're selling their primary homes and moving somewhere into condo. But a lot of the development you'll see, even with the $1 million homes around it, then they're popping up beautiful new condo buildings as well within those developments, whereas before it would have just all been houses.
Yeah.
So Windsor is starting to lean more into the condo market, so it's really kind of cool.
So the pre-construction space is kind of growing as well.
Yep.
That's one thing in Toronto where like it's, to be very blunt, it's not a mess, but like you either love pre-construction or you don't. I don't really love pre-construction, but it's because you're spending a ton of money on it. But I imagine like in a very different market, like there's probably advantages at an entry level price point in Windsor versus Toronto where you're spending $1,700 a square foot for some downtown project, which is...
I'd have to talk to my friend Chris, who's on my team, because he actually does a lot of pre-con.
Oh, nice.
So with that, to actually verify exactly where that price changes, I don't know that information off the top of my head. But again, that's why we got all the people in our worlds, right? We lean on the people who know more than we do.
Exactly, You won't catch me selling property in Windsor. You know, I think there's also... there's like an idea where you want our clients to get the best quality of service.
Yep.
So if I don't know Windsor from the back of my head, I'm not going to sell a Windsor house. You know what I mean? I'm going to refer them to an awesome agent. I know a couple, maybe sitting next to me over here, who can do that job for my clients and do a really good job. So
yeah, well, exactly. Well, like today, I met you today and we were chatting about things, and then I have a client and he's like, hey, I'm looking up at the GTA. I'm not going to go up and sell in the GTA. You know why? I have no idea. I know how to drive up there. I don't really want to drive up there.
4 hours.
Have you ever been? Well, it's not even the 4-hour drive. It's once you hit the traffic in Toronto. The problem is you should be able. You can probably walk faster than you can drive at certain times of the day on the 401.
And you're not even wrong. Like, that's not even a joke. There's pockets in Toronto. You're better off getting out of your car, leaving your car there, pay the parking fee, and then just walk. It's pretty rough.
You'll get to your appointment on time.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why everyone in Toronto's a runner. They're all, I believe, they're marathoners because they want to run instead of driving between spots.
Yeah. So if you were to think about Toronto and you're looking to our Windsor market, and you're saying what would be the thing that Toronto really separates itself, or some of the cooler parts about the GTA, that if they were like, okay, I'm going to get my job, or I'm going to go to U of T, or I'm going to go to Ryerson, or different things. What are some of the coolest parts, or the inside knowledge of the GTA? Like what's a good eating spot, or what's a really cool mall, or what are some of the cool areas?
So what I like about Toronto is there's so many different pockets of Toronto. Like when you say Toronto, I'm like, oh, there's so many ways to go. Where do you go? But like there's all these cool different areas you can live, and they all feel very different. Like if you go to, let's say, Toronto, on the west end, you got the Junction, you got Hyde Park, where there's a little bit more larger units, more historic. There's more culture, I find. A little bit more heritage buildings as well.
Yep.
And it's more walkable if you like nature, if you like parks, if you like a little bit more history. That's a good pocket. And then you can go all the way to the other end. We go to Yorkville, where the restaurants are pristine. Everything's a little bit more expensive. Yep. Actually, a lot more expensive. But if you want any fashion boutique designer, it's a walk away, because they close on all streets in Yorkville.
Wow.
So it's like there's so many different culture points. And then you can go all the way, on the south side, where it's downtown Toronto Entertainment District. You may not be able to park there because they have no parking, but you have essentially every social, food, entertainment aspect a walk away. You don't even need to pay for an Uber because it's so close, which is like, and again, that goes to different points in people's lives where you're going down for university. It's really awesome, really fun to be there. As I find people grow up in Toronto, they'll move a little bit more north, go to places like Vaughan, places like Durham, where there's more affordable entry-level houses there. And you'll find as you raise a family, you get outside of the downtown core, and you'll go to where, I actually have a house versus, I have a little, shoebox in the sky, I like to call it. So it's a really cool where someone like me who's grown up in Toronto, you can see all those different points in people's lives as they grow up. And there really is a lot there. The only thing I'll tell you that is different is the price point is wildly different. What's curious on your end, I want to ask you, when it comes to a lot of people looking on the investment end, when you look at an investment with a client, to my understanding, it's more on the cash flow basis versus appreciation. Because I'll tell you, with Toronto, everyone looks appreciation because the cash flow never makes sense. You're going to be negative either hundreds or thousands of dollars on your investment that you're paying towards, and a lot of times paying mostly interest. Versus on Windsor, how do you typically look at an investment?
Yeah, so cash flow, with the interest rates as they are now, we're looking more break even. But for most of the history of Windsor, we've always been able to find cash flow. We did get into a bit of equity flipping over the last couple of years with some of the crazy change in the, our prices jumping sometimes 4x, 5x between a 6-7 year window. But most of Windsor's always been about, you can pick up a property, you can put the tenants in. Usually they'll cover your costs today. And if interest rates even dip down 1 or 2%, you're starting to cash flow $200, $300, $400 a month.
Yeah.
And the equity is just a benefit. So, it's just looking through whatever lens. And so I always ask clients, what is your specific target? If you're in the current market, if you're like, I want to flip a property, it's like, okay, that's possible, but you have to buy something pretty dilapidated to make that adjustment. If you're like, I'm looking for cash flow, it's like, okay, so we're just looking at multi-unit. Right? Yeah. You need, usually today's market, you need the dual tenancy to really get to true cash flow. In single tenancy, you're more break even in our market, where like you said, in the GTA, even still now, it's like hundreds, maybe thousands a month on the undercurve.
Yeah.
And you're really banking on the fact that condo is going to go from 700 to 900 over the same 2-year window, where we're expecting to make our money on the cash flow and sometimes on the increase.
And the funny thing with that is it feels like it's not sustainable when you look at the appreciation, and because it's like, to a certain point, prices, they tend over year will appreciate. Don't get me wrong. But if people are betting that every single year they're going to go up hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're running into not even appreciation for investment. It's strictly speculation.
Yep.
Where that can really fall in your face. While when you look on a cash flow basis, like that's so much in my opinion, a much stronger investment that you honestly cannot get in most core spots in the GTA, unless like you throw 1 million people in the basement, you try renting out per room, and that is illegal. Don't do that. Well,
yeah,
don't do that.
Well, and again, we were actually chatting just quickly earlier with some of the other people. It's that whole thing. If you don't want to live where you can afford, right? It's the cool part is then buy a rental and use that as an equity position so it will grow over time and you continue to rent where you want to live. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you don't have to live in the property you purchase. And when you're looking at that from the GTA perspective, coming towards Windsor or other markets between here and Toronto, you can get, as you basically get, the further away from Toronto you get, the cheaper it tends to get. The only spot where you kind of dip is Chatham-Kent is a little cheaper than Windsor-Essex, right? So, and then London goes back up by about 100,000 on an average sale price. So it's interesting because the closer you get to the GTA, the more people are willing to live at distance. And if they only have to go in once a week or twice a week now with the current, work from home schedules, they might live further away because it's affordable. Again, it's really cool. What do you think about they've talked about it for years, the train. That bullet train they want to put in that just gets everybody, basically they're talking about it coming all the way from Chicago all the way to Toronto, and like we're one of the hub cities they'd put in.
See, I've heard so many different versions of this. Like one going to Montreal, one going to Toronto. I didn't hear about the one you're talking about here. Okay. But if it saves my 3.5, I'm stubborn. I drive everywhere I go. Maybe I'm stubborn like that. I like to pay for gas. But like if it saves that 3.5 hour drive that I could have taken, 100% do it.
Just jump on, fly, get into the city.
That feels like a cool idea in the sense of, and even going to Montreal, I think it would be a cool little spot because it connects most of those major hubs. Because the amount of people, off topic of real estate, I think it'd be a cool conversation. So I'm not sure. Are you going to family reunion?
Yes.
How much is your flight?
The flight, because we're flying out of Detroit, I think was about $480 round trip.
Okay, so that's not. I was going to cry and complain that you guys have cheap flights. My flight round trip is about $600 just because I'm in Toronto. But I'm like, I feel like the moment where.
But what are you flying? Are you flying
WestJet and Flair on the way back?
Okay, we're flying Delta.
Oh, okay, that's fair. I've heard in most cases like you can get a flight from Detroit to Vegas for $200.
Yeah. So if you go with Spirit or some of the other ones, we looked at the pricing. The benefit was I also used points to help save on those costs.
I don't find enough.
But when you looked at the thing there, it was really funny because I think it was round trip for about $187.
That's wild. That's crazy. And the absolute cheapest, and that's with Flair coming back.
Yeah.
No carry-on, no nothing. I had to sneak that bad boy on. But it's like $600. Anyways, it feels like it's a second mortgage. Yeah. Just to travel.
Just to travel.
But you know what? If I got the train from Toronto to Chicago, I'd then fly to Vegas.
There you go. And it'd be a lot cheaper. You just, again, the benefit of Windsor, and so we are a big city, even though we're not. One of the mayors from the U.S. who is in trouble and had some court issues decided he'd come to Windsor, forgetting we're a different country. You're not usually, if you're in court, you're not supposed to leave the country. He forgot, came here and was in trouble a number of years ago. It's really funny because Windsor is basically a suburb of Detroit. And so if you think about the size of Toronto, you think of the size of Detroit, Michigan, everything's there. We even gained an NFL football team.
Yeah, we don't know that.
You got the CFL though,
but no one goes there. Well, I can't say that. There's actually a lot of people who go to their games, but I wouldn't go to their games. Not that. Well, yeah, I'll catch some hate for that, but I won't go to their game. But if there was an NFL team, 100% I'd go. Yeah, 100%.
There you go.
Yeah, well, the Bills used to come once in a while. Yeah, they stopped doing that after they realized how terrible we are at tailgating. Yeah, Toronto fans are terrible. We're now. I'm sure you guys know how terrible Toronto fans are in any sport, but it's a mess when it comes to our sports teams. But I had a thought. I thought I mentioned. What was interesting, what I learned is you guys are all Detroit Tiger fans, which makes no sense.
I'm actually a Jays fan.
Okay, thank
you. But at the same time, I will root for the Tigers unless they play the Jays.
Yeah.
So because again, for me, the only team that I can't do that for is the Red Wings. So I despise the Detroit Red Wings. I love the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
But in basketball, like the Pistons and the Raptors, I'll look at both. Soccer, don't pay any attention to it. CFL, follow the Argos. Usually that's the team I've chosen over the Ticats, even though they're slightly closer.
Yeah. Now, do you prefer, let's say, the Lions versus the Argos?
Yeah, I always watch NFL. I actually watch college. We just won the national champion, Michigan. Let's roll. So again, college ball is fun. I'll watch the NFL. Football's a great sport to watch. Just hang out. You can have it on in the background. Hockey, the only benefit, I like hockey, but you have to watch the whole game because everything's happening. Whereas football, you get a minute to sit down, get away from. So
exactly,
depends.
And the same thing with baseball. Baseball's not one sport where you can basically just chill, have a beer. You don't actually have to watch the game. Well, I do, but I love baseball. But it's like you can get, that's the one sport where like you're chilling the whole time and you kind of watch the action as it goes on.
Exactly.
So, but I imagine you guys all flood the Detroit games when the Jays go.
Yeah.
Go to Detroit.
Yeah, we as an office actually we'll get tickets and go across. So the only thing that's different between Toronto, we do have a border you got to cross. So the only cost that we have is you got to pay for a passport, but you get that for 10 years, so it's not really a big deal.
I know one buddy of mine, and if he watches this, I'm sorry, but he still doesn't have his passport. So if that gives him motivation to actually do it, and
hey, if you live in Windsor and you don't have a passport, you're missing out on a ton of great restaurants and things there. We have an amazing restaurant scene here local. And then you just add the benefit of the Detroit scene as well, and all those things. So if you think you're like, oh, I'm moving from Toronto to a small city like Windsor, you're like, yeah, but we also have one of the largest American cities across, like within 20 minutes. We could leave right now and be at LSA, the Red Wings Arena, in probably about 30 minutes.
Really? So your border doesn't like hold you up? I feel like
not depending on what time you cross. Like there are times of day where the border does, but we're actually building another bridge right now. Wow. Gordie Howe Bridge will be finished, so we're gonna have the tunnel, the Ambassador, and the Gordie Howe Bridge. So like the ability to get into the U.S. gets so much easier. So yeah, you
go to where Buffalo is, it's a mess just to get across the border for us, so it's a big pain. And you guys have a good casino too. Well, in Detroit, but the MGM.
Well, we got Caesars Windsor.
It's in Windsor.
Yeah, we have Caesars Windsor, and then we do have MGM and a few others. My content guy be standing behind the camera. He might know all the different poker rooms of the following locations and what's going on there. But yeah, no, like Windsor really does have a lot to offer. I lived in the GTA. It's a great city, great history, like you mentioned. Both cities have a lot to offer. I would just, final comments, guys, if you're out there and you're thinking about the GTA or you need to move for work, reach out, ask questions. There's never a bad time. And hey, if you know Gabe and you're looking to reach out to me and you want to get in communication with me, feel free to reach out to him. Reach out to me direct. Let's go.
I'm happy to talk. My one final note is the weird thing about Windsor's, the people I do know here, oddly enough, everyone who is from Windsor absolutely loves Windsor. And everyone from Toronto absolutely despises you guys. So there's something, you guys are doing something good in a way where there's an awesome culture here. So first time here after 3.5 hours of driving. So I'm excited to explore this a little bit today. But awesome. Thanks, buddy, for joining. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.